My name is Sarah. I'm the program coordinator here at the Historical Society. I wanted to mention just a few events that we have coming up. On June 28th, Joanne Huss will be at the Kiesling House doing a spinning demonstration from 12 to 3. You can drop in any time within that time frame. On the 28th as well, the Popcorn Wagon is open from 10 to 5. July 12th, our mayor, Kathleen Backer, will be doing a butter making demonstration at the Kiesling House. That will be from 12 to 3 as well. Drop in any time between then. And then on July 17th is the next Lunch and a Bite. It will be Dan Backer presenting a beard, a bar, and some drugs store. It will detail his great-great-grandfather's beard that is being kept in the Smithsonian Museum, as well as a history of Backer's Bar and Esser's Drug and their importance to downtown New Ulm. Now, Sheriff Jason Seidl will be presenting today on the history of Brown County Sheriff's Office. Jason was born and raised in Sleepy Eye as the oldest of 5 siblings. After graduating from St. Mary's, he earned his bachelor's degree in law enforcement with a minor in corrections from Minnesota State University, Mankato. His career in public service began as a correctional officer sergeant in Appleton, followed by roles as a patrol officer in Morgan, dispatcher and jail programmer here in New Ulm, and later chief deputy for 11 years. Then in 2019, he was elected sheriff. While doing all of that, he also managed to get married and have 4 kids. He's a husband, a father, a coach, and he is our sheriff. We're honored to have him with us today to share his knowledge and perspective. Please help me in welcoming Sheriff Jason Seidl.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me? Okay, can everybody hear me? So what started out as just kind of like capturing our history and then having it on display at the sheriff's office kind of turned into this, kind of being down there at the museum. So I want to thank Sarah and Darla also for helping with this. So thank you very, very much. So the start of this is the sheriff's office is the oldest law enforcement office in the English common language. The word sheriff comes from the words shire, administrative division of the land, and reeve, which is a local official, the precursor of the modern sheriff. And sheriff's office versus sheriff's department. The sheriff is an elected position to hold an office. Office is often considered an independent office, with the sheriff having inherent powers and sovereignty under state law rather than being a department of a county government. The office of the sheriff is not simply another department of the county government. The internal operation of the office of the sheriff is solely responsible of the elected sheriff. The county board heads are not, we're not subordinate to the county board. We do get our funding from them, but if I were not to agree with my funding, I could actually go to court, and I could go to court for my budget. So that is where there's a difference in that. And then sheriffs were the chief law enforcement officers in the county. So you can see the sheriff's office. I'm sorry with the microphone. Back in 1855, this is what Brown County looked like. It was a territory of the state of Minnesota. It went all the way out to, so we're over here. It went up to followed the Minnesota River up to the South Dakota, Minnesota border, goes all the way over to the Missouri River, follows the Missouri River down. So Brown County at one point in time was 42,000 square miles. Right now we're at 618. So that's that right there. So Joseph Renshaw Brown is where we got Brown County's name. Brown County, Joseph Renshaw Brown, he was a Brown County, he's an American politician, pioneer, fur trader, newspaper editor, businessman, inventor, a speculator, an Indian agent who was prominent in Minnesota and Wisconsin territory and state politics for over 50 years. He was actually born in Maryland. And I know some of the questions came up earlier. There are 9 Brown counties in the United States. There's 9 of them. They are in Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Minnesota, Nebraska, Ohio, South Dakota, Texas, and Wisconsin. They're not all named after Joseph Renshaw Brown. There's different ones out there, but they do come into play because every once in a while we'll get calls or tips from from people. They just see Brown County and then they contact us with a tip, and it's like some people say, by Green Bay Harbor, some underage kids are drinking. So that we have to in turn turn our tip over to Green Bay, Wisconsin, which is Brown County, Wisconsin, in order to get Texas. So that does happen quite often. It does. This right here is the first appointment of the first sheriff on March 8th, 1856. Governor of Minnesota Territory Willis A. Gorman appointed Jacob Bruss as the first sheriff of Brown County. And that is Jacob Bruss. I'm going to say a couple things right off the bat. Some of us lead exciting lives, and some of us lead boring lives. So some of us, we're not going to have a lot of stuff because we kind of lead boring lives. I will put myself on the boring life. Last night, my wife and I were to a baseball game, and that's kind of what we do. Saturday, we'll be going to a baseball game for up at the state. But some of us have boring lives, and some you'll see will have a little bit more interesting lives. So Jacob Bruss was born in Persia, Germany. He worked in slate mines and also farming in Germany. Came to America when he was 19 years old, first in Chicago for 5 years, then New Ulm. He was a farmer, wheat buyer for the New Ulm Roller Mill Company in Essex. He was married twice. He had 4 kids. He was appointed on that March 8th, 1856, and he had a salary of $25. That was his salary for the whole year, $25. He also served on the city council for about 12 years and served on the board of county commissioners. The next sheriff is Sheriff Henry Meyerding. He was a sheriff from 1857 to 1860. He was born in Germany as well. He came to America in 1853, first to Chicago, then New Ulm, then later on to St. Paul. He was married. He had 9 children. He was a Brown County sheriff and a tax collector, and he took the first census of the county in 1857. So again, if you go back to that big map all the way out to the Missouri River, he took the census of that. I don't know how, but he did. And then on March 6, 1857, the town of New Ulm was incorporated. Meyering was selected as one of the 4 city councilors. Meyering was selected as one of the 4 councilors to manage. I'm sorry, it's kind of going out. He was one of the 4. Can you hear me if I do without it? Not really? Can you hear me now? Okay. He was one of the 4 counselors to manage the affairs of the town. He moved to St. Paul in 1862. He was a cabinet maker. He also was a member of the St. Paul Board of Education, a representative at the state of Minnesota, and he also served on the St. Paul City Board of Health. And then during his time, Anton Graff is the first jailer for Brown County, and he is going to be in this. This is the first county building in Brown County. It was built in 1859, so it's the first sheriff's office jail altogether, and it was an 18 by 22 1-story 3-room structure built out of logs for $600. So $600. And then later on, it was burned down by the Sioux during the uprising in 1862. The designer and builder was Julius Berendt, also the Herman Monument in New Ulm, as he designed that. And the vicinity of this is near the stadium, near North German Park. So it's kind of down there by Johnson Park, somewhere in that area. That's where they say it is. So don't have official where that is other than near North German Park down by where Johnson Park is now. The next sheriff is Sheriff Charles Roos. He was a sheriff from 1861 to 1864, born in Germany again. He came to America in 1851, settled in Chicago, Cincinnati, then Indianapolis, and then to New Ulm. He was a cigar maker, commander of the citizen soldier during the massacre. He is also later on the county superintendent of the public schools, the clerk of the district court for 8 years. And doing some of this research, you would probably sometimes see like his name as being the clerk on some of the other documents for the sheriffs. And he's also a member of the New Ulm City Council. He was also the city of New Ulm's first mayor until he held that position when it was first incorporated in 1857 until the time of his death. So that is your first mayor right there. The next sheriff is Sheriff George Jacobs. He was a sheriff from 1865 to 1866. Again, born in Germany. He came to America in 1850, started out in Louisiana and then stopped to St. Louis. And before that, he also later on served as a justice of the peace and operated a general store after he was sheriff. And then after the other sheriff's office was burned down, this is the next one that was built. This is from 1865 to 1889. This is, if you're familiar where the courthouse square is right now, the front of the courthouse, if you're in the courthouse looking out towards State Street, it would be off to your left, not quite in the corner. You'll see another picture of this will be behind the third sheriff's office, the second courthouse. So kind of across from where the probation building is. This was built for $2,964 back in the day. And again, designed by Julius Berendt. And this is going to kind of be the demise of this building. Oh, sorry. So what happened there was a Christmas Day murders. If anybody familiar with that a little bit? So what happened, 2 years earlier, there was an individual named John Campbell who was lynched, and then they tried to hang him, but it was botched, and they ended up dying by strangulation. So he slowly choked to death. Later on, 2 years later, on Christmas Day in 1866, two trappers, Alexander Campbell, not related to John Campbell, and George Linscomb were from Mankato. They were trappers. They're returning from the woods near Leavenworth, Minnesota. They're returning to this area, to New Ulm, and they stopped at the bar. They were dressed as trappers are, and they're kind of dressed, what many Native Americans would also be dressed as. So they started playing cards, and some other people started putting the beverages on their tab, and then there was a little bit of a fight or argument about who's going to pay for this tab, as it wasn't their tab. A little bit later on, there was a dispute, and then there was a Civil War veteran named John Spencer joined the trappers. They were playing cards, and then ultimately he started banging on a kettle, and then the two trappers were kind of like dancing like Native Americans, and then later on, and even portraying like the scalping of whites. So then a little bit later on, Spencer, he turned on Linscomb and forced him outside and began to maul him. The crowd prevented Campbell from helping out his friend. Campbell was able later on to force his way to Linscomb, but Spencer had already hit him over the head with an axe. Campbell slashed out with his hunting knife and severed Spencer's artery in his leg. The sheriff arrived a little later on and took Campbell and Linscomb into custody. And at that time, for those two, they were kind of looking at them as their savior to get them out of there. So they went to the jail, which is that one right there. Later on that night, Spencer died from his wounds, the knife wounds. And as the word kind of spread around town, people came to the jail, and they ultimately broke them out of the jail. They formed a mob. While they were still handcuffed, they put a rope around their neck, and they end up getting, one was hung from one of the grates by the windows, and the other one was hung from a ladder. It's not over yet. And that was done by an individual named John Gutt. So he did that. Well, later on, what happened is the news got over to Mankato. Mankato was going to come over to try to exact some revenge for something that happened over here in New Ulm. So they did that. They come over. There's no prisoners, no dead bodies to be found. Last they had is that the sheriff had them behind the jail. They were to maybe have like a coroner review of the bodies. So they went back to Mankato. A couple days later, on December 31st, another group of trappers and Mankato residents came over to New Ulm to look for them again, and they were able to find the bodies. They drug them down to the river, and then they put a hole in the ice, and then they pushed them into the ice in order to send them back to Mankato. So that's how they found them. And then even when they recovered the bodies, they took them out on the Nicollet County side to not come through the New Ulm. So that is where this building right here is going to kind of come to an end, because they said it was not secure. So shortly after that, they decided that that building is not going to be secure, and then they're going to start the process to get a new building. And this is one right here, Sheriff Frederick Brandt. He served from 1867 to 1868. He resigned. Before he was sheriff, during the massacre, they had the people from New Ulm that were just deceased. They buried them along the river, down by the river, and then later on, because the cemetery is where it's at, they didn't want to go out into the rural area and then all of a sudden have where maybe the natives would kind of come back and attack them. So they waited till later on to rebury them. The same time that they would rebury them is when the Sibley from the military was bringing the Indians from Fort Ridgely over to Mankato, and they were to come right by the cemetery area. So he did not think it would be a good idea. He also strongly opposed it, and then there's actually a letter from Sibley to the governor saying that reprimand Frederick Brandt for doing this and kind of being a stickler to the side, if you will. They actually said in some of the letters that they would have fired upon the crowd except for there was women in the crowd. So the military would have fired on the crowd except there was women in the crowd. So that is another one of the interesting ones. Later on, he became sheriff. William Giesecke, again born in Germany, later on died in California, and he just served from 1868 when he was appointed, when the other one resigned, till 1874. Just a very average, everything I can see on that one is just very average sheriff tenure. But the second courthouse, this is that second courthouse. It's also the second sheriff's office, the first courthouse. Later on, when they got rid of this one, they built this right here. This is the third sheriff's office and the second courthouse. This was built in 1872, started there. It took possession of it in 1873 and then through 1904. The building was a brick building. It was constructed for about $10,000. They later on put a brick barn, behind it, kind of where this the second sheriff's office, first courthouse was. And if you look at this right here, this is actually in the corner, right across. So this would be Center and State Street, right here where this is at, right there. Courthouse Square, that's where that one's at. And the other one's just a little bit behind it. And then the other courthouse, the modern courthouse, is right in the middle. I don't have a picture on this, but this is, he went by George Bickelsham, and he was the sheriff from 1875 to 1878, and later on he resigned. Again, born in Germany, he ended up moving out to, he ended up dying, I think, out in the county of Oregon, or something like that. So there's not a lot. In doing some of the research, I ended up contacting some of the family from out contacting some of the family from California, and then later on, up there where he died. John Manderfeld, as the last one resigned, this one was appointed. He was the sheriff from 1878 until 1880. He was again born in Germany, and he actually had quite the history afterwards. He was a justice of the peace for 25 years and also a member of the Brown County Board of Commissioners for many, many years. So he was kind of a little bit of a stepping stone, but later on he rose to prominence as well. Oh, sorry, my bad. That's John Manderfeld. This one's Edward Casey, the sheriff from 1881 till 1884. He was born in Ireland. He came to the United States in 1849, settling in Massachusetts, and in 1854 came to Minnesota, to the Hanska area. After a sheriff, he kind of moved out by the Mulligan Township area. Again, he was a private in the Minnesota 1st Infantry K Unit and also the U.S. Army Light Infantry. And he also conducted a livery barn, so he shoed horses and took care of horses. This one right here is John Baptist Schmid. He was a sheriff from 1885 to 1890. Again, born in Germany, came to the United States in 1867, settled on a farm near Seidl, Minnesota. He had 8 children. Back in Germany, he manufactured glass. He is also a musician. That's where he got his first paycheck from. He worked for the Hounstein Brewery and August Schell's Brewery. Also had New Ulm Pottery for a little while. And then after he left the sheriff's office, he engaged in a hotel business over in Sleepy Eye. He had a general store over in Sleepy Eye. He also had a flour mill over in Springfield. And then he ended up being a vice president for a bank over in Springfield, Comfrey, and Clemens. And then for 5 years, he was on the Springfield City Council. And also for 12 years, he was on the Springfield City Board. Louis Schmaltz. So this is another interesting one. He was in office from 1891 to 1892. He died in office. He was in Minnesota and died in New Ulm, Minnesota. So I'm going to read the article that they had. Sheriff Schmaltz commits suicide. His body was found in the river near the Wilkeman lime kiln. For several days he had been missing and apparently had been dead since Thursday. Deaths and disorientation are supposed to have rendered him partly insane. For weeks he has been acting strangely and living rashly. In a moment of mental breakdown brought on by fast accumulation of debts and excessive dissipation, Louis Schmaltz, the sheriff of this county, concluded to end his own life. Just when and how he put his rash determination into execution, nobody will ever know, but there are particulars enough to correctly surmise. For the last 2 or 3 months, Mr. Schmaltz had been acting queerly. This is actually what it says in the article. His most intimate friends could see that something was wrong with him. He was persuaded to change his course. To these warnings, however, he gave no heed. Debts were gathering and heavily upon him, but instead of trying to relieve them, he only contracted more, continuing drinking and desperation. No doubt that affected his mind. When his body was found by the Minnesota River on Sunday, the awful outcome was, of course, that made pretty painful event. About a week earlier, Mr. Schmaltz left his home. He was married at the time, and he did have 2 kids. He was in the habit of doing for days at a time without letting anybody know his whereabouts, and went to Minneapolis. In the company with him was a strange woman of questionable character, with whom he had been enamored with in his seasons of drunkenness or sessions of drunkenness. And while in Minneapolis, he proposed that they seek together some distant place. She refused to do, and then he returned home. And then later on, he had left. There was a gun found by where he had left, went into the river. He also had like notes and papers that he kind of thrown about. So as then he just kind of died in the river. So they ended up doing an autopsy on him as well. So that is one of the last ones, kind of questionable. Nels Anderson, sheriff from 1892. He was appointed, or 1892, appointed until 1898. He was born in Oslo, Norway, and then also he won a couple of elections prior to that, becoming sheriff. He was a blacksmith, a farmer, and he was also on the Springfield City Council. And I forgot to mention one thing here. Under John Baptist Schmidt, back in 1897, the city of Sleepy Eye tried to get the county seat from New Ulm. 1897, the city of Sleepy Eye tried to get the county seat away from New Ulm over to Sleepy Eye. They tried a couple of attempts, and there was some question about the land as far as the use and who owned it, and then they had to do some stuff there. Sleepy Eye also passed some bonding bills to build the courthouse over there. So that happened a couple of times where Sleepy Eye tried to draw the courthouse and the county seat away from New Ulm over to that. And that happened under John Baptist Schmidt's time in office. Next one is Sheriff August Leo Matter. He was a sheriff from 1899 till 1902. He was born in Delaware, Minnesota. He died in Montana. He was a sheriff. He got reelected 3 times, and then also for many years after that, he served as the police chief. And then years later, he also was a business owner in Sleepy Eye, and also in the undertaking business over in Sleepy Eye. So you have that, and then later on he moved to Montana. Sheriff Julius, who I will say is probably one of the more colorful sheriffs there. He was the sheriff for 25 years. So a lot of those other years, they just had 2-year terms. He also died in office, but not like the other ones. So he was there for 25 years. He was born in Brown County, Minnesota on a family farm, died. He ended up collapsing at his house, and then later on got transferred up to Minneapolis, where he died up in Minneapolis. His sheriff's salary in 1928 was $2,200. I know I have a commissioner in here, so hopefully don't try to lowball me on the next salary. So, he was 5 years in the Minnesota National Guard, appointed as a New Ulm police force until elected, 5 years as printer for Post Review, 1 year a printer in Minneapolis Free Press, and then also worked as a mechanic. When he died in office, you had 7 candidates that were going up for his position. One of them was his wife. So that was it, and that was to be appointed by the county board. And right here you'll see Sheriff Julius, and this is actually Sheriff Roos from a couple years ago. This is his son Charles as a deputy. So you have Sheriff Julius, and then Charles Roos, previous sheriff's son. And that was like an advertisement back in the day for campaigning. So I think he was a character. He kind of wore a cowboy hat at times. So he was a catcher, I believe, for baseball. Yes, quite the character. This right here is actually the jail that I worked in for 3 months, or the sheriff's office I worked in for 3 months. And then also, this is the one I probably remember the most, as growing up as a kid. So right here, this was built in 1904. It was a sheriff's office, and also the jail, and also, just so you know, the family, when the sheriff was elected, the family would go live in the sheriff's office. And then the wife would cook and or clean for the inmates, so doing the laundry and also cooking. I say this, my wife knows this. If we were to live in our sheriff's office, everyone would be getting fish sticks and tater tots every day. So this one right here went from 1904 to 1994. And we have somebody her father, we'll get to that in a minute, Louis Adam was her father. So he lived there also with some of your sisters and brothers you said earlier. This jail right here housed 11 inmates. Later on we'd have the dispatch center. Carl Roloff right over here. He worked there for many, many years. I remember my first day coming to work, and my first person I was going to get trained in on was Carl Roloff. I was very happy. I told that to Mike Reynolds. So Carl Roloff, I know I also got Booker in the back. We'll get to your building in a little bit. So, Carl, did you want to tell a story at all? You want this mic is cutting in and out a little bit. Maybe not. So this is Carl Roloff from Carl's Corner, and worked in the jail for many, many years. Started at this building, then went over to the new one.
Yeah, it was very.
Gotta go a little bit closer. It is coming out.
Okay, now is it working? No? Oh, a little closer yet, okay. Yeah, I started with the sheriff's office. We ran a business in Essex. It was a break-in. And the deputies came out to investigate the break-in, and I still had a few things there, so they called me in to see if any of my items were missing. It turned out they were not, but the deputies gave me a bad time. Now I needed a job. And I said, no, I got about 3 years of weekends I worked. I should have some time off. The next day, the sheriff pulled in my yard and said, I understand you're looking for a job. That was Sheriff Peterson at that time. So I started there part-time for a couple of years, and it seemed like it turned into full-time awfully quickly. And I do work in the other building. I kind of wish that building was still there. It was really a nice building. And one of the more humorous things, I guess, working in the jail, we had a jail waiting list. The jail was full, and they had prisoners that were convicted of minor things, so we had a waiting list. If somebody would get released, we'd get on the phone and say, you're up, you can come into jail now. You can spend this time this weekend. And they had pictures of inmates, and sometimes Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse would be on that board too. It was a fun building to work in. We had good people to work with. And going into the new building, we had an elderly gentleman that was janitor. He really did a wonderful job. And he came in one day after we had the big reel-to-reel 24-hour tapes that was taken out and replaced with a desktop, real small mop. And he stood there and he looked at that and he said, I need more money. I said, why is that? More carpet. So the big reel-to-reel was gone. I was working again the night of the AMPI fire. That was an exciting night. On the more humorous side, we had a elderly gentleman, heavily German brogue, rural Springfield, called in. He said, "I need the fire department out here." I said, "What's that for?" "Got to wash my house." I said, "What happened?" And he said, "Well, I was hauling liquid manure, filled his tank, didn't get wife come running out, flagged him down. The neighbors got tickets for the ball game. Let's go to the ball game." Parked the honey wagon right where it was, went to the ball game. As the heat expanded, the honey wagon blew up. And his said, "You got to get the fire department on here. My house is full of," clean it up a little bit, hog manure, and I can't even see out the windows. So we sent the fire, I notified the Sleepy Eye fire chief and our Springfield fire chief, but I don't think he went out. But it was I wish I would have had that on tape. It sounded much better for me.
Take the building to look at from the outside. Absolute beautiful building to look at from the outside. When you got inside, a little bit less practical. I think I have some pictures of some jail cells a little bit later on this, but beautiful picture. The courthouse is right here. So later on, this is going to become a parking lot, and then the current sheriff's office will be this way a little bit. So that one was built. The budget was $20,000. They built it for the $21,226. That was that one. Next sheriff is John Ryder. He served from 1828 to 1858. He was born in Austria. He is the longest serving sheriff at 60 years. So between this sheriff and the previous one, Julius and John Ryder, you have 55 years of service. So 55 years as a sheriff between those two. Came to America as a child, first over living in New Ulm, then moved over to the Morgan area, and they married Anna Selmer in 1913. And then, as Sheriff Julius died in office, he was appointed. There was 16 ballots needed to elect him as the new sheriff. But after he got that, he's been there, longest tenured sheriff. He retired at age 70. So, in also doing some of this, I kind of found out he had a deputy, Louis Adam. Louis also wanted to be sheriff, but then this sheriff did not want to retire, and ultimately he did retire, and that's when Sheriff Louis Adam, we'll get to in a little bit here, and his daughter's over here, but he was also president of the Minnesota Sheriff's Association, and then his sheriff's salary in 1928 was $1,300. The next one, we have a Sheriff Lewis M. Adam. His daughter right here is Betty. So Betty Meidel. Got some information from her through Dennis Johnson. So it's kind of nice. I got to kind of connect with a couple people and find out some more. He led a pretty boring life like me, so it's not one of those other ones, which is a good thing. He was a deputy sheriff for 9 years prior to being a sheriff. Then he ended up being sheriff from 1959 to 1966. A couple of the stories on him: he was shot at once, and also he had a knife thrown at him that stuck into a tree. That was a domestic. Two different situations, but once he was shot at, another one a knife was thrown into a tree. And then he was also a member of the Concord Singers, and then also a charter member of the New Ulm Battery since 1921. And then this right here is, I'm not going to get his name, but this is Sheriff Lewis Adam right here. And this is Ted Grunmeyer from over in Sleepy Eye. So those are 1957 cars. A little thing about the cars, back in the day, you had to buy your own car. And then you would get reimbursed for your mileage. So those were their own cars, and then they would just get reimbursed for their mileage later on. So, but yeah, those are, I think two of them are 57s, the one's at 58. Sheriff Weinkoff, this is Irv's father, so if a lot of people here maybe remember Irv Weinkoff, the city of New Ulm police chief, this is his father. I think I'll have a picture where they're both in the same picture in a minute here. He was born in Pipestone County, Minnesota. His salary in 1972 was $12,742, and in 1973 was $13,124. He had 15 years in law enforcement, 7 years as a deputy, and then 8 years as the sheriff. And then later on, he did some busing and doing transports like with semis and stuff like that. He was over the road truck driver, short hauls. And you will see right here, here is Sheriff Weinkoff. And then this is Chief Weinkoff right there. And then also, so across, you have Sheriff Weinkoff, William Mather, you have Marv Reek, Larry Peterson, who later on is going to become a sheriff. Then you're going to have Ray Hager right next to him. Then you have Irv Weinkoff, I call him Junior. Then you have Jeff Olson, and then Pat Mathwitz, and last is Harry Thoreau. So it's actually kind of nice to have some of these pictures. Oh, do you want? Oh.
Thanks.
If you want it, I'll send it to you.
Oh, you guys on there.
So this is the first sheriff that I probably remember, Sheriff Bud Gasquin from Sleepy Eye. First name was Cletus. He was a sheriff from 1975 to 1982. Born in Sleepy Eye, passed away in Sleepy Eye. 33 years of law enforcement. Prior to becoming sheriff, he was actually a state patrol. And then kind of some stuff that came up is with the Shag Road murder that happened, and there was some kind of maybe kind of like blame on how it was investigated or this or that. So then there ended up being a couple, there were 6 candidates for sheriff on this one right here. So then a hot topic was the Shag Road murder. And as far as some people saying nothing getting done on that. As today, I don't believe it's ever been solved. So, a couple things that kind of come up in this right here. In 1977, so a lot of these people before, you saw that they were farmers. One person who ran for sheriff was, he had a gas station. So you had farmers, livery stable. One had a soda shop. You did not have to have an education prior to being sheriff. You just had to just put your name in to get it. So in 1977, the Minnesota Post Board, they started kind of introducing a curriculum to become, you need to have this credentials to become sheriff. So that started in 1977 when that went into place. So 1978 is where the first sheriffs and also law enforcement, you had to have certain training before you could get that. So that's going to kind of put an end to somebody who maybe was just a farmer or worked in a general store prior to be. I mean, I worked at a grocery store, but I still had to have my education. And right here, Sheriff Gasquint across here. I don't have the names with me right now. That's Trudy Richter. That's Lou Cupja right there. Paul Wheeland. I think that's Ray. So if anybody recognizes those at all, but that's front of the old sheriff's office. And this is the kind of cars that I remembered, where it was brown, and then I have the sticker up here, if you will. This was just a very plain sticker that they put on the side. The only thing different between the sheriff's office sticker and the highway department, ours said sheriff's office, highway department said highway department. Otherwise, it's the exact same. And it's the exact same patch that we have on our shoulders today. This is Sheriff Peterson. This is the sheriff that hired me. So, as Carl said, he hired him as well. Back in the day, I know talking to Trudy Richter and also Paul Whelan, that's all it took to get hired. He'd just see you and say, hey, do you need a job? Show up tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning, you get a job in the sheriff's office. That was it. It's no longer such like that. So, but he was the first sheriff not to live in the sheriff's office. He did not live in the sheriff's office. We're looking at 1983 is when he was elected till 2002, and that actually came up during the election. He married Kathy. Anybody knows Trooper Kathy? Kathy did not want to be working in the sheriff's office. So He served 20 years as sheriff. He's also president of the Minnesota Sheriff's Association. He helped organize the Brown Line Redwood Drug Task Force. He started with the Brown County Sheriff's Office in 1971. This is the 1904 jail to 1994. So that is what you had. That's kind of what you see like in the movies where you have the bars, the toilet, the mattress. That's what it was. We had 11 beds. This is the 1994, the current sheriff's office that we're in right now. So you'll see you have the stained glass, you have the bed, you have the window where you can see out and everything like that. So that is our current sheriff's office. And then this is a day room. As you can see, you got the metal doors. You don't have the bars. A lot of people think there's going to be the bars in the jail. There's not. It's 1 inch thick glass. It's tempered. You're not going to break through it. This didn't come through, but this is 1998. Actually, a picture of the dispatch. Did not come through. Back in the day, they said there's never going to be another computer above this, and there's been a lot more computers above that. So this right here, we got Carl. We got Gina Winter. She was our dispatch supervisor for a while. Mike Mathewoods, Deb Hoon, Deb Mack. Yep, Mr. Jensen. And then we have Darren Halgett, Mandy's son, and then Daphne. I can't remember her last name. So that is those are just the dispatchers. This is our current sheriff's office, built in 1994. Cost us $6.3 million. The Brown County Sheriff's Office houses the Brown County Sheriff's Office, the 51-bed Brown County Jail, 911 Dispatch Center, New Ulm Police Department, and the Minnesota State Patrol. The 3rd and 4th floors of this actually occupy the jail. And we have now the old jail, we can only house inmates for 90 days. So once you got the 90 days, you got to take them over to Nicolet County and kind of do a swap, then you can start your 90 days over again. So back in the day, we'd house 11 in our old jail. As Carl said, we had a waiting list. So we also were able to house all of our people here. And back in the day, before everybody else started building on, we housed out for a lot of different counties, like Candiota County, Hennepin County. So we housed out for a lot. We made a lot of money during the day. We don't have as many inmates in there now, but the ones that we do have, it's sad, they have a mental illness. Right now, I looked at the roster today, we have 3 with a mental illness. 1 is getting transferred up to St. Peter today, but yet we just picked up 1 from Cottonwood County yesterday. So it happens. This is Sheriff Tim Brennan. He was Sheriff Peterson's chief deputy. He started in law enforcement in 1973 to 1975 for the Springfield Police Department, and later on, 1975, worked for the Sheriff's Office. And in 1994, he was promoted to chief deputy, so he was Larry Peterson's chief deputy for a couple of years. And after Larry retired, then Tim became sheriff. This is Rich Huffman. Prior to being a sheriff, Rich was a farmer. And then he actually went to school to be for law enforcement. He is a 1979 state championship wrestler, so he loves that little fact. He went to Alexandria Technical College for law enforcement, and then he worked for Sanborn Police Department, Morton Police Department as a chief, and then he was in the New Ulm Police Department as a patrolman, the dare officer, corporal, sergeant. Some of the things that he had under his watch that happened, and I don't blame the stuff for them. It's there was a Daniel Hauser case where I think he was 12 at the time. He is diagnosed with cancer, and the parents wanted to have a different alternate treatment, and then the court ordered him for the chemotherapy, and when he was supposed to go there, he did not. And then he went out to California, and then it kind of became a nationwide search for a little bit. I know that Daniel Hauser's still alive today, but our news group that we sent out, it was like 12. And I'll say this, you have to do right. So when I do it, we would contact our KEYC, we'd contact our journal, all the newspapers in this, KNUJ, you always want to treat your local people great, because the national media grew up to about 200. So we would have like 200 media come to these press conferences for this. And the nice thing is what we did is we always treated everybody locally the same as we did everybody else. Because you don't want to just get starstruck and all of a sudden have like one of the bigger news stations be here, and the next thing you know they leave you, and then now you're stuck and you never gave your local newspaper, your local media any kind of attention. So yeah, so that was during that. And then also he had the Amber Lechuga, Miguel Vasquez murder case. That happened in, Miguel Vasquez killed his 23-year-old girlfriend, Amber Lechuga, in September 2014 in an apartment that they shared in Springfield, Minnesota. How we came onto it, we did not know that happened a couple days earlier. Next thing you know, there's a van fire down by the Little Cottonwood River south of Sleepy Iron 4. We get a 911 call for that. We respond to that. Fire department goes to that. He said he was assaulted while he was driving the van, and then he got assaulted as far as a vehicle hitting his, and then they set him on fire, and he was naked running down the road when law enforcement came up. They put out the fire. Sometime later on that, it was discovered that there was human remains inside the van. So, but we could tell that there was not Amber was decapitated, and also, so we ended up finding the head in the river just to the west. So it sounds like he probably threw her. Later on, it was discovered that he killed her in the apartment, and he dismembered her, and then that was that one. So. That's a Ford Crown Vic. We no longer have those, but they were a staple for many, many years. Here's some of the media when Rich is there. Sorry about the picture quality. And this one right here, this is a boring guy. I'm going to say right now, I got a pretty boring life. Married to Jolene Rosensingle from Leavenworth, Minnesota. We have 4 kids, Joshua, Megan, Kyle, Matt. Hockey coach for 30 years. In 2024, we started contracting for the Comfrey Police Department. We got an opportunity to take a picture of one of our squads with a Zamboni on Sleepy Lake when they had their pond, their ice hockey over there. I'm getting emotional. Here you'll see me. I wear this every day. I wear brown. It's very rare that I wear white. You saw a lot of other sheriffs wear white. I wear brown. You'll see me right here. There's 4 of us in this picture that are wearing brown. So that's that. And that's at the state capitol about a year or 2 ago. And it's I'm kind of getting emotional because this is going to come in. You can't see this one. Taking the politics out of it. Take the politics out of it. I got to see 2 living presidents. I think that's awesome. I got invited to go see the speaker, the president's State of the Union address, and so just telling you, my dad said wear white. I said no, I wear brown. I wear brown. My wife said wear white. I said no, I wear brown. My mom said wear white. I wear white. That is me right up there. You can see me. So that is a current picture of the Brown County Sheriff's Office. Pat Booker back there. She's one of our bailiffs. She's a Minnesota Department of Corrections probation officer for many, many, many years. So thank you. That's it. I have stuff up here as well. I know I'm getting long in time. Sorry, I got emotional. Our current one, here's like, in 1994, here's some of the current badges that we have. And then here's some of the newer ones that we have. You'll see that the patches went from Brown County Sheriff's Department under Larry Peterson to Brown County Sheriff under Tim Brennan. Our old radios. We have a lie detector here from when Sheriff Weinkoff was the sheriff. He had that. Kyle will remember this. They have a reel-to-reel over here. So what would happen, it was the big magnetic reels. So at the end of the day, at midnight, you would take out the old reel, you put the new one in, and then and then when they're 30 days old, you'd have to put them on this eraser so then you don't have stuff going over top of audio recording. So that's a reel-to-reel. The old ticket book, we don't do ticket books anymore. We don't do tickets anymore. As far as this, everything's on a little computer right behind the little headboard on the squad. So yeah, that's it. If you want to come up, you can do so. Leave all that stuff. There's a taser there also. And then if anybody wants a pen or a pencil, you're welcome to do so. And here's a little bit of the article with the 1887, where Sleepy Eye was trying to take over the county seat. Any questions? Yes, Ken Winchell.
Sheriff Seidl, I purposely attended this today so I could publicly ask you this question. Back in my wayward youth, in Comfrey and mostly Leavenworth.
Statute of limitations has expired. Right?
I'm hoping not. On multiple occasions, the Brown County Sheriff's Department, starting about when I was in the 9th grade, confiscated significant amounts of my beer, wine, and hard liquor. And I'm wondering if that's down in the evidence room, could you make arrangements to have it delivered to me now?
I'm sure it's been disposed of, and seeing some of those other pictures of some of the sheriffs and the staff that I know are on that, I know how they disposed of it. I'm telling you that right now. Yes, and then this is Sheriff Louis Adams again, his daughter, so she got to, so thank you for giving me some information. Carl, thank you for yours. Booker, thank you for your service. And Jensen also for your husband. So does anybody have any questions at all? Any questions I can hopefully try to answer? Yes.
Another thing I noticed, of all the sheriffs, how many of them had significant mustaches and beards? And I thought that was particularly appealing. It made me think of that old rock and roll song.
It doesn't even look good on you. It doesn't. No. So what happened with that is actually, if you go up to the courthouse, they have the pictures of the judges also. Once the electric razors and stuff like that came into a little bit more common, people started losing the facial hair.
Don't you want to be known as Sheriff Wooly Bully?
I'm the short, fat, bald one. Does anybody have any questions? I can definitely answer them. Anybody at all?
How many deputies do you have?
Right now, we're trying to go through the process of adding. So the question was, how many deputies do we have? We are trying to add one more for next year, but right now, when we're fully staffed, we have 14 deputies. That's for 24-hour coverage.
So not quite one per township.
No, so they can roam. The deputies can just roam wherever they, you might get a call over in New Ulm, you might get a call in Hanska, Comfrey, way up there in North Eden, you might get a call, so they're just gonna go around wherever the calls are. Sometimes if they get bored, they're gonna go out and work traffic, so they're not specifically assigned to 1 hour, except for Comfrey, because we're contract with them. So we have to, when they say we wanna have like 1 hour per day, we have to give them 1 hour per day. They are in Comfrey. If they leave to go to another call, they still owe time to Comfrey.
We could use you for 2 hours.
Maybe because your husband was burning out in the street?
He knows who did it.
Yes, I worked at Appleton Prairie Correctional Facility, yes.
Recently, the state has talked about closing Stillwater.
Yes.
You got any opinions? Do the two have anything to do with each other? Could they have? Should they have?
They have nothing to do with each other. Appleton's a private company, the state of Minnesota. Stillwater is a very old facility. I don't know the age of it, but I mean, it's, if you're to do a lot of improvements, it is gonna look like the 1904 jail with the cells and all the bars. So to upgrade, I know they've had some riots there in the past, because I think only the medical unit in Stillwater has air conditioning. That's it. So it's old. And I'm not saying they have to live in comfort, but it is a very old, antiquated jail.
Is Appleton in use today?
It is not.
And would it be if Stillwater was closed? Would that be a logical extension?
That is gonna have to be a state of Minnesota purchase. I'm gonna guess right now, because I worked in there about 91, 92, the upgrades that you would need to do to that. I can tell you right now, the sheriff's office that we have right now, it was built for 6.3 million. There was 22 cameras in the day, 22 cameras in the day in that building. Right now, we have that thing covered, like every day room, we have like 3 cameras in the hallways, court. So just to add certain infrastructure like that, it's gonna be so cost prohibitive, you're better off starting out new on that. So that's, and I know there's another question, yes?
When you have a county and you have cities, municipalities, how does law enforcement jurisdiction get resolved?
So the question was, if you have a city and a county, how does jurisdiction handle? So if it happens within the city limits, it's the city, that's their case to follow through. The county, we can go anywhere in the county. So we can go way down by Comfrey, up in North Eden, we can go anywhere in the county. So if there's not law enforcement, like a city, like Searles or Hanska, if there's we're not gonna go there for like somebody mowing too early or something like that, an ordinance violation. But we will go there if there's a domestic, we're gonna respond, or a medical, we're gonna respond, or something severe like that, we will respond. But they're responsible for their own law enforcement. So if something happened in the city's gonna be in charge of it. That doesn't say we can't make traffic stops or stuff like that. If we're close by to a call, we're gonna respond to that call, we will. But ultimately, it's gonna then go maybe to this, like City of Springfield, Sleepy Eye, or DeWalt. But, I mean, we're doing the exact same thing as each other. We're both fighting crime, we just wear a different color uniform. So, we have a couple more tasks than they do. We have to operate a jail by statute. We also have to work court security by state statute. If there's any kind of drowning or something like that, we have to do the recovery. And then also, if somebody is picked up on a warrant, let's say you have Sleepy Eye Police Department, the State Patrol, and Brown County pick up 3 different people on a DWI. And then now they go to court and they'll get a new court date, but none of them show back up for the second court date. And now they're all picked up in different counties. It's not the Sleepy Eye Police Department's responsibility or the State Patrol, it's the Sheriff's Office to pick up all of them and bring them back. So that is ours. We also take care of the warrants, extraditions, stuff like that in other states. So.
What is the jurisdiction for like Flanders State Park?
So Flanders State Park, actually, so that is half in the city, half in the county. So usually the part that's in the city, I think, is more used, so a lot of it's gonna be theirs.
Okay, group center is.
That's on the county side, yeah, I believe. Yeah.
I was a probation officer for juveniles 50 years ago.
Okay.
So the sheriff department did work with juveniles a lot and
Yep.
kept them in the jail and, for runaways and this type of thing. Are you involved with juveniles at all anywhere? It was a.
So we handled, the question was, she was a probation officer like 50 years ago and dealt with juveniles, and we helped them in the jail. We can't house them in the jail because we're governed by, licensed by the Minnesota Department of Corrections. So therefore, we can only hold adults. They have juvenile treatment or juvenile facilities like at Romer. I think Carver County has one. I think one over by Red Wing also. So you're gonna have to travel a ways for them. So we will transport them if we have to, but we do not hold them in our jail because we're not licensed to do so.
And they transport them.
Yep, we do a lot of transports, but with COVID, they started using ITV, and so we were able to do a lot more. Somebody can get picked up, I'm gonna use Coochin County, International Falls along the, so let's say somebody gets picked up there and has a warrant down in Brown County. We can just have them remote in, have a court date, so we don't have to go all the way up to International Falls by the Canadian border and bring them back down. We can resolve their case and hopefully never, it used to be, we would sometimes go up, pick one up from like Moose Lake or Lino Lakes, bring them back to court for 15 minutes of court, take them back up, and then you have to do it 2, 3, 4 times. So we spent a lot of time on the road. I'd rather keep our deputies in Brown County serving Brown County. I don't know what total
Was
count
it a
is.
juvenile facility?
Total
Yeah.
wasn't St. Paul, it was a juvenile facility, might as well work there at college.
I don't know. Yeah, so
Oh.
the question was what was total town, and then Miss Mary said that it was a juvenile facility in St. Paul years ago. So
Do you still
have a reserve program?
We have one reserve left on it. Because the training that they have to have the same training as licensed law enforcement. And for how many events that we have, we really don't have a lot of events where they can start working. So it really doesn't pay to have them. So we have one reserve. John Nicholson, Warren
Is it really?
Springfield. Huh?
Just John?
Mm-hmm.
Does the sheriff's department still do citizens ride along?
We do ride-alongs every so often. You'd have to request it, and it would have to go through, you'd have to run some checks, but yes. Yeah.
I've done those and they are, what an eye opener. You have no concept.
We have great, I'll say that right now, we have great people working in the county. I'm talking Sleepy Eye, Springfield, New Ulm, the fire departments, the ambulance services. We work really, really good together, so I love it. We have great law enforcement and emergency response services in Brown County, so couldn't be happier with that. Anybody else, question?
Who's your chief deputy?
Chief deputy right now is Jeremy Reed. Yep, prior to that was Steve Depew, he retired, now it's Jeremy Reed.
Do you guys just handle all the calls, like state patrol and everything, or?
So what happens is, the question was, do the dispatchers handle all the calls, state patrol and everything? If it happens within the boundaries of Brown County, it's gonna come to us. So if it's a 911 call, it's gonna come to us. They have a new one where you can do a geo, where you can, if you're like on Highway 14, let's say going through New Ulm, you could actually have it go to the state patrol. We're not gonna do that because you could actually be right on the sidewalk and you maybe get hit by a car or you have something happen to you, maybe a medical, and it's gonna go to the state patrol. So we have all of our calls in Brown County go to us because we're probably gonna have somebody closer than they would. So we handle all the calls, 911 calls that come into us. Any other questions at all? I'll take, and then again, if you wanna come up and look at the stuff, you're more than welcome to look at the stuff, so ask me questions offline, I'm fine with that, but thank you very, very much.